Hello, and welcome to another short box from Warhammer 40k's Grim History from the Beyond. I'm Zeckthar, and this week we'll be talking about the Black Crusades, or as the Traitor Legions call them, the Long War.
And before we start with the first Black Crusade, there is a bit of prelude we must run through, such as the forming of the Black Legion and Ezykyle Abbadon becoming the new Warmaster. So, without further ado, let's dig in, shall we? So if you listen to my last few voxes on the Great Scouring, after the Battle of Terra, the traitors were all pushed back into the Eye of Terror, including Abaddon and the Sons of Horus. Like the rest of the traitor legions who escaped into the warp, the Sons of Horus had been badly bloodied by the Loyalists. In fact, due to the fact that Horus was dead, they found themselves in an unusual predicament. They were, for the first time, low man on the totem pole. Not a very good place to be, especially with the worshippers of psychotic laughing gods around you. It wasn't long before the traitor legions began to turn on each other, in a time known as the Slave Wars, or Legion Wars. What initially started it was Fulgrim's Legion, the Emperor's children, who had run out of slaves they had brought with them from Terra. Wishing to continue their heathenistic pleasures through torture, they began to raid the other legions for their slaves. This erupted in all-out war, one that Abaddon had no wish to be part of. And so, Ezykyle Abbadon abandoned the legion. Broken by the death of Horus and sick of war, he wandered alone into the Eye of Terror, taking his legion's massive flagship, the Vengeful Spirit. Abaddon left his brothers behind and plummeted into the furthest reaches of the Eye. The former first captain knew that the Legion Wars would never end. These were not his battles. Shedding blood for slaves and territory, Abaddon wasn't a barbarian to fight over trivial nothingness. He was a soldier, a warrior. If the 9 legions wished to raid one another's hunting grounds for table scraps and steal each other's toys, then he would let them. Of his own legion, he felt no need to save them from their petty fate. They chose to fight and die in a worthless war. Abaddon's dark pilgrimage took him across the thousands of worlds of the Eye. He walked the surface of every world in their purgatorial prison. He felt that he had to learn the realm's boundaries, to see its secrets. His time as a pilgrim layered wisdom and perspective atop the brutality of his former command. Now, as you all can probably imagine, this is not the last time we see Ezykyle. Far from it. But we must leave him lost in space, because something very important is taking place at this moment with the Sons of Horus. On the demon world of Malium, a graveyard world of steel and rust, the Sons of Horus raised a fortress, fashioning a mighty citadel from the racks of decaying vessels lost to the warp. The 16th Legion entered Horus's body within the Great Tomb, and many fell into worship of their fallen demigod. With the Primarch dead and their legion on the verge of extinction, the Sons of Horus stagnated. Some captains suspected that it would be but a matter of time before they and their battle brothers were drawn into the wars between the traitor legions, and so they pushed for the Sons of Horus to replace its losses by increasing the legion's gene seed stocks. These same captains knew that any fortress, no matter how grand, could not hope to hold back the determined Space Marine assault, and called for more warriors to be found. Unfortunately, the majority of the surviving captains were convinced that the warp would provide all the power they needed, if only they could master the methods of merging demon and Space Marine into the possessed. Now, the Sons of Horus had remained largely apart from the conflicts of the Legion Wars. However, jealous eyes now turned their way. Traitorous forces gathered against them and conspired to rob them of the remains of Horus to further vile and selfish ambitions. The Primarch's body, with its potent genetic information, biological secrets, was a great prize indeed. In a sudden assault, the remnants of the debased Emperor's children, having grown vastly in power after firmly cementing their terrible pacts with Slaanesh, easily smashed their way through the defenses of Malium and into the central chambers of the Sons of Horus' stronghold. They stole the body of the slain Primarch from the heart of the tomb and spirited it away. Some say with the purpose of cloning it in order to create a new and still greater Warmaster of Chaos. Following this defeat by the Emperor's children and the destruction of their fortresses, Falcus Kibber, chieftain of the Duraga Kal Azmajak, master of the warship Baleful Eye, and former commander of the Justirian, summoned his erstwhile allies to a secret meeting. He had summoned the former Thousand Sons Chaos Sorcerer, Iskander Kaon, leader of the Kesharhan Warband, as well as the former World Eater warrior Lorvine Ukris, leader of the 15 Fangs Warband. They had been called to meet aboard the grand wreckage of the long-dead Sons of Horus battlecruiser his chosen son. Falcus informed his allies that Lupercalius, their fortress, was no more. The monument was gone, and it no longer existed beyond ash and ruin. As for the shattered legion, he did not know how many had survived the Emperor's children's brutal assault. For all he knew, his warband were the last survivors. Having lost everything, Falcus turned to those he could trust, those who had been his allies in the past. He also brought with him the dire news that the Warmaster Horus's body had been stolen. The Third Legion had taken the body to harvest it, to reap its genetic bounty. They wanted to clone the Primarch's body. The assembled Astartes did not want to contemplate the dire consequences of such blasphemy. By resurrecting the first Primarch, the Third Legion hoped to be able to end the Legion Wars and come out on top. There was little recourse left for Falcus, and there was no hope of retaliating against the Emperor's children's capital world of Harmony with his meager forces. There was little else he could do, but the shrewd war leader had one last desperate hand to play. He would seek out
the vengeful spirit.
With it, he would destroy the Canticle City, and the abominations of the Third Legion were attempting to resurrect. Those of the 9 legions knew the vessel's name well. An immense battleship, majestic beyond majesty, with its spinal fortresses and armored prow delineating the bulky murderousness of the Scylla pattern variant of the ancient Gloriana-class battleship hull. It was the only Gloriana vessel in all the Emperor's fleet born from the Scylla pattern variant construction scheme, in fact. But the task Falcus had set forth for them was all but impossible. Hundreds of warbands throughout the centuries had sought the mighty ship. None had returned, but those hundreds of warbands had no idea where to look. Falcus did. To prove his point, he brought forth a prisoner. His name was Sargon, once part of the Word-Bearers, but had cast aside Lorgar's teachings. Sargon claimed that he had not only seen the vengeful spirit, but he had also trod the decks of the mighty flagship himself. He knew its location, the Radiant Worlds, located in the Elysian Veil, on the far edge of the Eye, near Imperial space, beyond the massive warp phenomenon known as the Fire Tide. After many terrifying adventures, Sargon led them to the vengeful spirit's resting place, and they soon boarded the ship, wary of what or whom they might find. After many hours, they finally were approached by a massive legionary who wore weathered and color-faded armor, scavenged and cannibalized from the warriors of all 9 traitor legions. With a long fall of ratty, snarled black hair stringing across his features, half hiding his face. He possessed unnatural, inhuman, gold-colored eyes. After brief introductions, the legionary raked his fingers through the mane of his filthy hair, revealing a pitted, pale face that defied an attempt to discern age. War was written across his features in a lattice of old cuts and pockmarks of heat scarring. Though he no longer wore the great black warplate of the Justarian, nor was his hair bound up in the ceremonial topknot of the Chthonian subterranean work gangs, they had found Ezykyle Abbadon. Now Abaddon explained to his fellow legionaries that it was he who had summoned them there. He had sent Sargon to Falcus in order to lure them to the vengeful spirit. Although they were not the only souls he had called to, they had the honor of being the first there. Abaddon sought warriors who wished to be more than the legacies of their diminished legions. He knew that these warriors who had sought him out no longer considered themselves brothers of their respective legions. Their former legions' names no longer rang proud in their hearts and souls. They were no longer the sons of their fathers, respecting them and embodying their failures. Abaddon was done with cold allegiances and temporary alliances. If he was to return to the battles raging throughout the Eye of Terror, he sought something more real, something pure, a war that meant something. Sharing his visions with the assembled legionaries, Abaddon knew that they all could become so much more than their father's sons. Both he and those legionaries before him all craved true, honest brotherhood. They all missed it. A Space Marine Legion's unity and its bonds of loyalty, its explicit purpose, its focused pursuit of victory. Abaddon missed what a legion could do, and the fact it was empowered to do it. All the 9 traitor legions, they were legions in name, color, and dregs of culture, but they were a horde, not an army, linked by fading loyalties and fighting to survive. Once they were bound by brotherhood and fought only to win, their kind no longer waged war, they raided and pillaged. They no longer marched in regiments and battalions, but scattered in packs and warbands. Now, Abaddon had no wish to change how things were. He wished to embrace it. He knew that many amongst the 9 traitor legions cried out to be part of a true legion once more. Abaddon's pilgrimage with Sargon had been more than learning how the tides of the Eye of Terror ebbed and flowed. It was about seeking those who would stand with him. The former high chieftain of the Justarians saw the true strength and purity and what they had become. There was a savage honesty in the 9 traitor legions' warbands now. They followed warlords of their choosing instead of those assigned to them. They created traditions rooted in the cultures of their parent legion, or completely defied their origins according to their own whims. Abaddon shared his vision for taking what the 9 legions now had and refining it. He meant to form a new legion, a new war, a real war, the Long War. Not a petty rebellion swallowed by Horus's pride and his hunger for the Terran throne. A war for the future of mankind. Horus would have sold out humanity to the pantheon of chaos for the chance to sit on the golden throne for just a single heartbeat. But the 9 traitor legions could not allow themselves to be used the way Horus had been. The chaos gods existed, and they could not pretend otherwise. Nor could they allow a sacred duty to devolve into such weakness as Horus did. Revelation was a long process. Abaddon was now wiser than he had been during his father's rebellion. He had seen a great deal more of what the galaxy could offer, as well as what lay behind reality's veil. But he was not arrogant. He knew there was a great deal left to do, and a great deal left to learn. All he knew for certain was that he was finished with his years walking alone. So now he reached out to those most like him. Abaddon could not offer any of them a place in a tyrant's plan. What he offered them was a place at his side as they found a path together, a brotherhood for the brotherless. His final words were to the sorcerer Ezykyle Abbadon, and he stated,
"We were born for battle, Kaon. We were made to conquer the galaxy, not to rot in hell and die upon our brother's blade. Who are the architects of the Imperium? Who fought to purge its territories of aliens and expand its borders? Who brought rebellious worlds to heel and slaughtered those who refused the light of progress? Who walked from one side of the galaxy to the other, marking their passage in a trail of treacherous dead? This is our Imperium, built across worlds we burned, over bones we broke, with blood we shed. You see it too. You feel it now, don't you? A new war. One not born of bitterness, nor founded on revenge. The Long War." And thus the Sons of Horus were no more, and Abaddon's Black Legion was formed. Soon many other warbands flocked to Abaddon's side. And with these new allies, as well as his former legion, he attacked the Emperor's children's worlds, and destroyed Horus's body, along with all the clones they had made from him. With this new dominance, the new Warmaster set his plans in motion for the Long War, and in 781.M31, 5 standard centuries after his retreat from Terra, Abaddon returned to Imperial space at the head of a host of traitors and demons. It was the Imperium's first encounter with the newly founded Black Legion, and the return of a brutal and bitter enemy many had thought lost to the graveyard of history. Through alliance, threats, and promises, Abaddon was able to muster the largest force of traitor legions seen since the Horus heresy and took the Imperium by surprise. At last, the Black Legion and the other traitors returned to real space, their first chapter in their long war against the Imperium ready to be written in the blood of Imperial worlds. The Imperium of Man would know his name. They would give him a title too. For the next millennia, mothers would frighten their children with the haunting tales of Abaddon, the Despoiler, and his quest to conquer humanity. Well, folks, it seems we've run out of time. And unfortunately, I couldn't even get to the first of the 13 Black Crusades. But tune in next week as we start our grand telling of the Black Crusades, starting with the first as Abaddon sets into real space with purpose. You see, he wants this sword that has plagued his dreams, and thanks to a little luck, and fate so it would seem, he now knew where it was, and he would have it no matter the cost. Confused? Well, I'll explain all of this next week. If you enjoyed this Vox, please like, follow, comment, and subscribe. And as always, until next time, this is Zeckthar, signing off.